Hello and welcome back to Offroad Outlaws, y'all. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how you can start up your own RP. Now, there are a couple of misconceptions that I've seen about this and questions that I've been asked by some of y'all. And I kind of want to clear up, I guess I would say, some myths, as it were, because there's no real correct way to do an RP, because an RP or a roleplay in Offroad Outlaws is literally just a scenario that you and your friends just kind of create and then play out in the game, but you really don't need to do much to get your first one started, because you can both do one by yourself or you can do one as a scenario with your friends. Now, one thing to keep in mind though is that you will need to create the scenario on your own. There's nothing that you can necessarily interact with in the game in regards to your scenario apart from the maps themselves that have been designed from that roleplay standpoint. Now, you don't need a crazy truck either. You can do it with essentially something that is completely base model and right out of the dealership. And the only time you need to start spending a lot more in-game money is when your RP starts to get a little bit more in depth. It starts to get a little bit more specific as to different maybe scenarios within the game. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the most in-depth and engaging RP based maps in the game. So some of my personal favorites right off the bat, and we'll go ahead and set a couple of special abilities here. But some of my favorites right off the bat are Twin Rivers Lake and Kentucky Hills Farms. Now, you can also use Hazard County if you would like to. That one's a little bit more off-road focused, but personally for me, I have always really enjoyed Kentucky Hills Farms and Twin Rivers Lake, and I gotta give a massive shout out to One Man Wolfpack for those maps because they are absolutely incredible. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the first one in this video, Kentucky Hills Farms, and I'll show y'all where you can get started. Now, once you've loaded into the map, it's entirely up to you as to how the RP is going to start and or play out. Now, some people like to get really in depth and sort of write down some of the things that they plan on doing. You know, maybe it's like a backstory for their character, or some people may just jump into it and make it up as they go along. Either way, you can literally go from whichever standpoint you would like. Now, the reason I like this map so much is because it gives you a lot of different houses that you can interact with. And I talked about this in another video that I did not too long ago in Offroad Outlaws, where I kind of showed y'all some of the different houses in this neighborhood and how you could choose one for yourselves and build that scenario amongst you and your friends. But one of the things that I really love about this map, apart from the houses, is also the fact that a lot of these houses, they have usable garages, or carports, they have usable backyards where you and your friends can hang out. I mean, literally, let's say if you chose this house, you could literally park up right here, leave your vehicle in the garage, and then just hop out and run around to the side of the house and just go and hang out with your friends in the backyard. And what's really cool about this is that, let's say, for example, maybe you and your friends don't necessarily have a bunch of crazy crawlers, or you haven't built up the budget yet to have mud trucks or monster trucks, but everybody can come out here with even stock rigs and have a really good time. So that's one of the reasons why I like this map so much. And it's really close to town as well, and that allows you to basically build a lot more elements into your roleplay really quickly. And this house right here is probably my favorite one in the entire neighborhood. Although if y'all saw my last video on this map, you'll know that I went with this house. And let's just say that after I found out all of the advantages of going with this house, I only moderately regretted going with this one. Now, before we do anything else on this map, because there's a lot more that you can do, there's a lot of other houses you can check out, there's a lot of other areas that you can make use of, but before we spend any time out here, let's actually switch over to another one of my favorite RP maps and show y'all how you can maybe get yourselves started over there. There is a good, oh, I went the wrong way. Oops. All right, let me turn around real quick. So, if you've been around Offroad Outlaws for any considerable period of time, apparently I am having, but vocabulary is hard. Words are difficult. Now, Hazard County, if you're not aware, is one of the oldest and also one of the most prevalent role-playing maps in Offroad Outlaws. However, you're not going to find quite as many usable interior spaces on this map because this map swaps out a lot of those usable interior spaces for heavily detailed rock crawling trails and very realistic ones at that. And so a lot of these maps end up having to make a compromise in one area or another. And even though this map is most likely a map that is familiar to a lot of Offroad Outlaws players, I still wanted to go ahead and show it because, again, you can still use a lot of the areas on this map for role plays, like, for example, this property right here. Now, there are all sorts of different areas that you could potentially live on a map like this, and while some of the houses and garages are a little bit more, I wouldn't even say rudimentary because I feel like some people would think that's like a dig at some of these, and it's absolutely not. It's just you're going to be seeing a very different style of houses and buildings on a map like this because it was built so much further in the past and so many updates ago. Now, that's not to say it is not an incredible map, though, because it absolutely is an incredible map that deserves your time, especially if you haven't spent a lot of time on it in the past. Now, another thing that I love about it is, once again, if you're someone that wants to take realistic vehicles onto realistic trails and kind of get that vibe that you're actually doing realistic off-roading, or at least getting close to realistic off-roading, or as close as you can anyway, in a game like Offroad Outlaws, especially if you want to intertwine the elements of realistic off-roading and role-playing in the same map, this map is definitely one I highly recommend looking at and one that definitely deserves to be on this list. Now, as I'm sure a lot of y'all are aware, Twin Rivers Lake has been one of my favorite RP maps in Offroad Outlaws for essentially ever since its existence, pretty much. And there are so many different things to like about this map. Didn't realize I was in front-wheel drive just now, but there are so many different things to like about this map that it really gives me so much to go over that it could take up an entire video. I'm not gonna let it take up this entire video, but there are so many things to love about this map, especially from a roleplay perspective. Now, there are entire barns and horse stables that you can go into. There are also trails. In fact, there's a whole network of trails that you can see out there in the distance. And not only that, but there are also several houses that actually border on the trail system if you want to live somewhere near some off-roading. Now, we're going to actually go through some of the main areas of this map, but we're also going to go through some of the other areas that are a little bit less commonly used. Now, there is a house, actually a couple of houses right here off of spawn. There's a sort of large barn dominium right there with its entire driveway and kind of slanted double garage. There's also a whole barn setup over here, which could be used as its own house, or it could be used as kind of an addition to this, depending on how you divided up this particular property. Now, if you wanted to find something a little bit more kind of all-inclusive, you can actually head up this way, and at the end of this road, you'll find one of the coolest houses on the entire map. Now, it's got its own parking area, it's got its own drive-in garage, it's got a patio, or rather a pavilion, not quite a patio, but a pavilion with a couple of picnic tables. You can park your main vehicle in here, and then one of the coolest parts about this map is that you have the main house, the main garage, like I said before, the little pavilion over there, and then you also have a full workshop over there that you can drive vehicles into. You can drive them up on I guess I would say kind of like a pseudo lift, because it doesn't go up and down, but it still provides you with something that you can role play out as a actual car lift. Now, let's get back in the Raptor and head on over to some of the other parts of this map. Now, depending on your particular role play goals, you can use a lot of different areas of this map for different things. If you're thinking about doing a full-on, like, large farm ownership RP, you can use one of the properties in this area, and then you can have some of your friends take on some of the other properties. However, if you wanted to do something a little more along the lines of a neighborhood. There's a neighborhood up here, which admittedly, these houses are all pretty similar to each other. It's a very kind of, I don't know, kind of cookie cutter neighborhood style, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because that can also be very realistic in terms of how it applies to the RP that is taking place. So some of these houses have backyards. Well, actually, technically, they pretty much all have backyards, and some of them also have independent garages like the one back here. Now, this one you've no doubt seen used in several live streams and roleplay videos, but there's a ton more to this map that rarely ever gets seen or used on my channel. As a matter of fact, there's another garage over there, and there are more and more houses with garages as you continue further on down this street. There's even another street that connects this one to the main road, which can get you over to the shops and the gas station and stuff like that. But it doesn't even end there. It actually goes across the lake, and then on the other side of the lake, you have full access to even more farms, more garages, more usable areas that you can go in and out of. You have a campsite down here near this property. There are so many different ways that you can apply this map to all of your different roleplay ideas, frankly. You even have a junkyard over here. You have a tractor dealership. There's so much that you can do and so many different scenarios that you can set up, whether you want to use them as essentially like vehicle-based scenarios or scenarios where you get out of the vehicle and walk around. Really, the sky is the limit when it comes to this map, and I still think that it is one of the most wild maps that has frankly ever been created for Offroad Outlaws. And so hats off to One Man Wolfpack for doing an incredible job on this map. But let's go ahead and get into some of my final thoughts and tips. The biggest thing to remember when doing any or really creating any RP scenario in Offroad Outlaws, though, is that at least outside of the scope of the game's capabilities, your imagination is really the limit to whatever you can come up with, whatever you can create, because there are so many possibilities as to how you can create your own scenarios on all of these maps that I've shown. But not only these maps, but there's also even more maps out there in the community that can do even more things. So if you have any maps that you think should have been in this video or should have been on this list or just need to be featured in their own video, let me know in the comments down below. And if you got something out of this video, let me know. Let me know what you got out of it. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you didn't like it. And if you hated it, well, then I guess you found your verdict on that then, haven't you? But once again, hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see y'all next time.